All right, and I believe we are now live. I'm going to set the chat to live chat, so I hopefully don't miss any messages. It looks like we already have 10 people in here. That's pretty good. Good evening to everyone, and SMT Mainline, thank you. Got two different trains on. We got this Canadian Pacific one with just the switcher engine, and the province in Worcester. I still can't pronounce that right. Running. Whole bunch of people joining in. Mason Jr., hello. Michael Prime. Union Pacific Train Man, hello. Blue Jaybird, welcome. Makes Trains and Things, hello. Hey SMT, can you run the Kool-Aid Via? Yeah, we can make that happen. I don't think I'll put my LRC cars on, but we'll have it pull one of these two freight trains, probably the one on the outside. Can you run BNSF 4926? Yeah, absolutely. I've actually already got it set up on the layout, so that should be pretty easy. Let's see any updates. I'll have to think about it. I've been kind of tidying up down here, but other than that, there isn't anything too significant. Last week, I was basically spending all my time working on the Hershey factory to try to meet that deadline, which I pretty much did, so I guess it paid off, but yeah, it's kind of made, there's a little less time for the layout is what I'm trying to say. Aiden, I love your content, keep it up. Thank you. Can you run the Kraus Mafia? Yeah, sure. Hey, Mike Miritz, welcome. How's it going? We got Norman Corey in here. Hello. Do you have a Montana Rail Link? I believe the locomotive I got just a couple months ago, the Essential Workers Unit, is by Montana Rail Link. Or it's from Montana Rail Link, I should say. What's a train you regret buying? Regret's a bit of a strong word, but there was this one time I was at a train show and I found this really cool steam locomotive, and the guy wanted $40 for it, claiming that it ran and everything. Anyways, I bought it, got it home, and it had to have been sunk or something because every part was seized. The drivers were seized, the wheels were seized in the bearings, and the motor was seized beyond belief. So I did end up getting it going, but it just took a lot more effort than I was expecting, so it's certainly not my proudest purchase. You know, if I'd paid $20 for that, I wouldn't have been disappointed, but $40 American is quite a bit for a project of that variety. Anyways, we'll let the train on the outside go around for one more lap, and then we'll get the VIA unit on. Hey, SMT, can you run any FP40 you have? Yeah, one was already requested, so that will be up next. Do you have a Norfolk Southern First Responders unit? I don't think I do. Do you have any Metro trains? I don't think I have any of those either. What's the best deal you've ever got on an engine? I was walking through an antique store and I found an old AHM engine in working order. There was nothing wrong with it for $3. So that one kind of stands out, but over the years, there have been some pretty good deals. It's kind of hard to say though, because I buy a lot of my cheaper trains in lots. So divided amongst the lot, it's pretty cheap, but it's kind of difficult to gauge what the actual price is. What's your favorite British locomotive? Probably the Deltic. I've always liked the Deltic. That or the, I think it's called the HST high speed train. Quite like that one as well. Whoops, looks like one of the trailers is coming off here. Are there any railroads you don't have in your collection? Well, I was just mentioning earlier, I don't think I have any Metro stuff. Sounds like the VIA unit's derailed. There we go. Hey SMT, I got a Tyco at a yard sale a few weeks ago, and I was thinking of you. Oh, that's cool. What kind is it? Favorite British steam locomotive? Probably the Flying Scotsman. What is the best train you have? Probably my Swedish E2 locomotive. That one was pretty high end. It's, I think, the most expensive locomotive I've bought to date. You mean the HST Intercity? Okay, yeah, that's it. That's a Class 43. All right. How long did it take you to make the chocolate factory? Also, how did you manage to get those tracks behind the factory? Okay, so the factory, I think I started kind of making plans for it sometime around the end of 2018, but I didn't actually start construction until probably about 2020. And the reason for that was it took a while just to find the materials, because it's not like you can buy a Smith Falls Hershey factory kit, right? So you need to find all the parts. So some of that was buying kits for the parts, or buying raw parts, like there's corrugated metal, brick, things like that. So that took a while. But yeah, in terms of actual construction, it took about 3 years. So the project's been going for 5 years, but in reality, the total time is not as long. To answer your question about getting tracks behind the factory, that was also a little bit of a challenge, and to lay them all out and get them in the right order. And the factory's not perfectly straight, so I actually had to kind of offset the track to match that, otherwise it wouldn't look right. And then I had to fill all of this in with drywall plaster, dig up the rails, and then paint over it. It's a timely process, but I'm happy with the results. Anyways, back to the trains. I think something might have derailed. I wonder where that happened. Doublehead the big boys. The big boys don't have proper couplers on the front. They're just cosmetic. I guess you could try to kind of like tie a string between two of them, but I don't know how well that would work. I just purchased my first engine off eBay. It's supposed to arrive Saturday. I'm really hoping that it runs as it was shown. Most of the time, sellers are honest. I mean, maybe that sounds a little rich because I just made a video about how I bought this locomotive right here, which was also supposed to be a runner, and it wasn't. But eBay cares a lot about feedback. It's very important to their sellers. So most of the time, they're honest. It's pretty rare that you get somebody who's trying to pull one over on you. Train shows are another story. I've had that happen a couple times. SMT, are you going to do a video working on the other layout? Yeah, probably quite soon. I've got more supplies for it, so it's really just a matter of terms of getting to work on it. SMT, when are you going to do another giveaway? Well, at some point soon, I'm probably going to do the Big Boy charity raffle, which I've been talking about for a while. I did the Facebook Market Trains giveaway yesterday. But yeah, there's going to be more on the way. SMT, do you have any airbrushing how-to videos? I can't say I do. I actually don't own an airbrush. Every time I do a project, I just use rattle cans, which are a little iffy, but, you know, they get the job done. SMT, what's your favorite railroad that doesn't start with the first 3 letters of the alphabet? The HCW? Although that technically doesn't exist anymore, so I don't know. This thing keeps derailing. I don't really know why, but either way, somebody already requested the Kraus Mafia, so I guess we'll go look for that. SMT, have you ever driven a model train derailed without noticing? It has happened a couple times. Most of the time, though, you know, because you hear the sound of the wheels hitting the ties. It makes a very distinctive clicking noise that any model railroader, once they hear, will cringe. It's funny, I remember a few years ago I had this locomotive, and I was running it on the club layout, which was code 83. My locomotive was one of those old Bachmans with the pizza cutter flanges, and you could hear it hitting the ties just because it was, you know, the flanges were too big for code 83 track. But anyway, I was doing this while I was running a live stream, and the amount of people who were like, it's derailed, I can hear it's derailed. It was unreal. It's like, just that sound, it takes everybody back. Chris says, SMT, who's the manufacturer for your Swedish locomotive? Also, who made the coaches? Are they custom? The Swedish locomotive is from a Swedish company called Jayco. They make kind of niche products for Sweden. Their manufacturing is actually done by Bachmann Branch Line, which, from what I've been told, is better than conventional Bachmann. I don't know if that's true or not. Time will tell, but that's who made that. As for the coaches, I believe they were by Roco, but when I got them, they were in the Swedish paint scheme, which is kind of like an amber color, so I had to repaint those myself. And I didn't do a perfect job. You can see a few little smears here and there, but they're good enough. Anyway, I believe the Kraus Mafia is somewhere over here. I was running that locomotive not all that long ago, so I'm kind of surprised I've lost it. I'm not seeing it. Well, until we find that, if anybody has another suggestion, I'd be happy to run it. It's probably one of those things where it's right in front of me and I just can't see it. BNSF Railfan, congratulations on finishing your Hershey factory. Thank you. That's been a long time in the works. Can you run a big boy locomotive? Maybe we'll run that one a little later just because it gets requested a lot. Hiawatha, yeah, we can make that happen. Can you run your American-themed Southern Pacific unit on the other shelf? Oh, the Freedom Train? I mean, we could try. The only thing is that it has some sort of a problem. I don't know if it was damaged, but it seems to derail on all the corners, so I think maybe I have to do some work on that one. I don't know. What is the beautiful ABA Santa Fe monster? That was a locomotive which I actually built. Basically, I had a whole bunch of scrap parts, a bunch of shells which had been destroyed in shipping, and I had one drive system. So I was going to throw it all away, and then I came up with this crazy idea to fix the shells, but cut the ends off them and glue them all together, and then just use a block of wood to create a giant fuel tank. Pretty wild project, but that engine does actually run. It just can't go through any corners. And it was kind of just a dumb project. A lot of fun, though. My goal is to install an AHM drive on that locomotive, because the AHM drives, once you remove the set screw, can actually turn 180 degrees. So I'm thinking maybe that engine could actually go around corners if I added that on. Can you run a CN locomotive? Sure, we'll get this one on, but we'll replace the one on the inside line. Will you plexiglass border the entire layout? Probably so, or at least the sections where the track is close to the sides. Just because that's where things go wrong. I've got to say, installing that plexiglass has been a big plus. The amount of money I've saved in broken cars and locomotives is unreal. Hiawatha seems to be having this problem where it doesn't want to pivot all the way. I don't really know what's going on there. Oh, okay, I see it. It's one wire. There we go. This is kind of like a problem I've had with this locomotive, is that the wires blend in with this black ladder right here, and sometimes they wrap around, but they look like one of the rungs on the ladder, so I don't always see it, and then the locomotive can't turn on the corners. Really weird problem. I should probably try to install some sort of an organizer. Well, the Hiawatha is a bit derailed, but I think that switch up there is going to re-rail it. Okay, maybe not so. Who made the Hiawatha? It's by Fox Valley. Can you get the Hornby, Thomas, and Percy? I really like the show Thomas. I really loved watching it as a kid, but I'm not really interested in getting the HO scale models. Just not something that I personally find appealing. I'm new to this channel, but I've been watching your videos for over a year. Well, it sounds a little more than just new, but thanks. What's the radius on the inside curves? For the most part, it's 18 radius, but there's a small section here and here which are 15, so you can only run medium-sized locomotives. Thomas with George Carlin was the best. I think I saw that skit probably quite a long time ago, but yeah, George Carlin was a very funny guy. I mean, he had a very cynical sense of humor, but yeah, I find a lot of his sketches were pretty funny. The hobby is growing. I think it is. Some people say it's headed downhill, but I think there's still lots of potential for it. Hey, SMT, I got another Athearn Blue Box locomotive. One kind of hesitates after some inches. Any fixes for that? I would clean the wheels first of all. Second of all, I'd probably check out the motor. Just make sure that's all clean. Another thing which can go wrong is that there's a little strip of metal which connects the trucks to the motor. It's removable. Those can kind of become bent out of shape over time, so you can try bending that back or just replace it with a wire. I'll see if I have an Athearn Blue Box around, that way I can show you what I'm talking about. Yeah, so here's your Athearn engine, and if you remove the super weight here, this little strip right here has to have good pressure with both the trucks, otherwise it will cause issues. Oh, one more thing too, you have to make sure the motor's secure, because if it's loose, it won't make contact with the chassis and it won't pick up power. So there's a few things you could try. I meant that I'm new to the whole participating in the live videos. Okay, I see. Hey SMT, I can't figure out how to get my Bachmann Spectrum SD45 going up 1% grades. How could I fix that? Well, I don't know how much freight you're hauling with it, but like a 1% grade is really not that steep, so I'm surprised to be having issues. I don't know on a Spectrum locomotive how much space there is inside, but the obvious answer is just to try to find a spot to add a bit of lead. But honestly, for a 1% grade, that doesn't sound right. I would check to make sure that the drive is actually working correctly, like both trucks are turning, because to me that sounds like one of the trucks is not working. The video you made of the Hershey factory was incredible, nicely done. Your narration was perfect, great job. Thank you. That one took quite a bit of effort to put together, but I'm quite happy with the results. That was only like a fraction of the history, though. I mean, this place over the years has so many other stories. I just thought that the opening was kind of like a big one, especially since the railroad was involved. Do your large steam locomotives work on the curbs? I've been having problems with my 22 radius and 18 inside. Yeah, some of them are okay. Most of the Rivarossi locomotives can handle pretty sharp corners, but most modern engines, larger steam locomotives, can't handle terribly tight corners. If you lay the track really carefully, they usually will work, but like most of my Bachmann steam engines, I can't make these 22 radius corners, so if you have the space, it might be worth upgrading them to 24s. Fortunately, in my case, I don't have enough room, so we're gonna stay as is, but it probably is an advantage. What are you gonna do on Canada Day? I don't know if I'm gonna make a Canada Day video just because I find it a little bit challenging doing a video on the same day that I'm out doing things, because a lot of people on Canada Day, you know, they wanna go out and live life, which is what you should be doing. So trying to negotiate that around a video is a bit tricky. I might give it a try, but yeah, I don't know. It was a lot easier in 2020 when nothing was going on. Hey, SMT, can you please run one of your Union Pacific SD 40-2s? I know in the prior stream you did run one, but it had some sort of problem. But I know you have several. Can you run one of them? I'll have a look. I don't remember which one was having issues. Break out the HCW passenger train. Yeah, that hasn't run in a while. You run a Rapido locomotive. We were running one in the beginning of the live stream. Have a look here. So there's this SD40-2. I don't think that that's the correct one, though. I think that's the one that was having a problem, so we'll try this one down here. It's a little bit newer. I think it's probably going to be fine. Hey SMT, I'm actually going to America soon. It's not Canada, but I'm hoping to see some cool trains. I'm sure you will. America's got a lot of amazing trains, and honestly, it's kind of a 2-for-1 because a lot of Canadian trains travel throughout the United States, so it's not impossible you might see a Canadian National or a Canadian Pacific locomotive. Try double heading the essential workers unit with a unit of your choice. I wonder what that would work with. I recently started my first HO layout. Okay, it looks like I did pick the problem locomotive. So it says, I recently started my HO layout. Do you have any tips for me? I would probably make a list of things you want. That's the advice I give most people. It's like go through some old model railroader magazines or search online. Just figure out what you want and then put together some sort of a design. Edit things away based on space and budget. Hey SMT, I recently got a River Rossi Big Boy and I'm having some problems. I'd like to know if you could help. Sure, what's going on with it? Alright, I guess we could try this one, but I'm pretty sure this engine is also having some issues. Do you have any sound-equipped locomotives? I've got a few. I've been having problems with one of my locomotives. You keep it on the railing, certain track, or it stops randomly. I would always check the motor and contacts So many things can go wrong, you know. Sometimes a soldering joint going to a wiper can break. Sometimes, yeah, most of the time it's just dirty wheels, honestly. That's probably the most common problem. All right, hopefully things will go a little bit better with this one. Yeah, it seems okay. I wonder if a low spot's forming in the track. I find it weird. That's the second time tonight something's disconnected. It's not picking up power. Check the tender. That, to me, would be the obvious source of problems. It's the flux capacitor. Yeah, that's probably what's wrong with it. The big boy that's not getting power, check if the wire going to the front set of drivers is broken. Very common with the old big boys with cab motors. Well, there you have it from Corey. Here's an idea. The Yellowstone big boy, whatever other articulated locomotives you have to do a double header. Two big boys might work together, but again, you have to overcome the coupler problem. So yeah, at the moment I can't double head them. I think I did run a Centennial with a big boy once. That's a bit of a different game. It's funny that's never derailed there. Yeah, it's actually riding on the rail right now. Can you run an AC 4400 or ES 44 AC? Oh, hold on a moment. Sorry about that, everyone. SMT, I'm really sorry. Okay. I'm having trouble with my CN. Who's it made by? This is reminding me of the Penn Central. I do see the similarities, at least with the track. How many F units do you have? Probably 30 or 40. How's NerfCat doing today? Oh, pretty well. Mostly just snoozing outside because it's pretty hot out. Lots of bridges on the layout. I like it. I think it's the way it's supposed to be. SMT, I believe you can get somewhat matchable DC locomotives. You could certainly have a double header with a little experimentation. Yeah, it's certainly possible. It's just that, again, with two big boys, you can't do that because the front coupler is not real. I certainly wouldn't do it with the Yellowstone because that is like, it's a home-crafted locomotive and certainly doesn't run the same speed. But yeah, in terms of like, you know, the two Rapido units, well, I could run both those together right now, actually, and they'd be fine. Is anyone else here using aluminum tracks? I don't know if that exists. I've never heard of aluminum track. Seen nickel silver, steel, and obviously brass. So here's how you see if two locomotives are adequately speed matched. Place them with a bit of a gap, add power, and see if they keep pace. So those two are pretty well coordinated. But if you see this gap between the two of them expanding or closing, then you know they don't run the same speed and you're gonna have problems. I'm currently using aluminum tracks that I made. Oh, scratch build tracks. You don't hear about people building that too often. It's a cool idea, actually building your own railway, but the only thing I can imagine is trying to make switches that work with, and probably be quite tricky. SMT, how do you minimize derailments? The first thing is track. You want to make sure that it is level and that all your rail joiners are properly connected. You don't want there to be any tilt. So having even track is a good start. Going with wider radius curves certainly helps. But the biggest thing is checking in on your rolling stock. So make sure that all the couplers are turning from side to side properly. And then another test you can do to confirm things are working right. Just test every single angle. So with this truck right here, you can see it turns back and forth just fine, back and forth up, and same on the other side. And provided it can kind of pivot in any direction without there being a snag, it should be okay. But I'd say quite often there's something inside the locomotive or outside which blocks it. So you can see right there, this doesn't prevent this from turning, but it's actually hitting the step ladder. And but I find if you do that, you make sure your trucks can pivot properly. That reduces derailments a lot. SMT, what lights do you use for your layout? They're just 12-volt grain bulbs. You can buy them at most hobby shops or online. They're making LEDs now. Most of the ones I have are incandescents. You forgot to check. Yeah, that's another good point there, Corey. This is a tool you have to buy. I have one around here. And that's to make sure that your wheels are in spec, which is quite important when you're going through switches and stuff like that. So you can buy one of these ones online from some various seller. It's by NMRA, so that's a good tool. If not, you can just find a set that appears to be accurate and measure it that way. SMT, do you know what Metra is? I believe Metra is the commuter rail service in Chicago. Can you run the Ontario Northland locomotive? Yeah, probably so. Can you restore your Canadian National GS4 locomotive? I'll try to fix that one up. I think it's going to be a bit of a challenge, though. Those old Bachmann engines from the 80s are not very reliable. National Model Railroading Association. Yeah, that's it. Hey SMT, I'm getting into the hobby. What would you recommend for a DCC controller? I use a Digitrax controller, but it's not necessarily what I would consider the best just because I haven't worked with other brands, so I can't compare this to anything. So, yeah, this is what I use, DCS51, but there are tons of other manufacturers out there, and there's a lot of debate in the community on who makes the best one. So, I don't know. What do you guys think? New person getting into the hobby, what brand should they go with? See if we can kind of do a poll here. Get an NCE power cab. Okay, so we got NCE. How many trains do you have right now? Probably about 500 engines. Bachmann controller works just fine. Yeah, the easy command system, that's a good one to start with. NCE again. A lifelike controller. I probably wouldn't go with that brand for DCC. Digitrax. Bachmann. Oh, there's a surprising amount of people out here voting for Bachmann. I quite liked my Bachmann Easy Command. The only thing is that it kind of bottlenecks you because the technology is frankly kind of old, and it was already limited to begin with, just to make it a little more simple. SMT, how's the smoke in Canada? It's been a little bit better the last 2 days, but up until that point, it's been pretty bad. There was one day where it was so bad, I went outside for 10 minutes, I came back inside, and it smelled like I had been by a bonfire. So, yeah, it's been a little mixed that way. Bachmann is the best. Bachmann is good. I can't tell if people are genuinely voting for Bachmann as a controller brand or if they're kind of just joking about it. Bachmann is terribly overpriced for what it is. Have you ever seen a Boston T-line trolley? I own one, but I want to know if it's common or not. I've never seen an HO scale model of one. I'm pretty sure I saw the real thing at the Seashore Trolley Museum in Maine, though. To be honest, I would have gone with a Bachmann DCC controller, only that it has 10 functions and all of my locos have 28 functions, so it wasn't going to work for me. That was the problem I ran into. The other problem is if you buy a used locomotive, you can't address it because most people address their locomotives by the number board, and since Bachmann only goes to 10, it's not very likely it's going to be within that. What's going on here? The comments are still working. What's a brand you'd recommend to a model railroad or just getting started? If you're on a budget, I would probably go with Walters for locomotives, like Walters Trainline. For starter sets, I'd probably go with Bachmann. They're not the greatest manufacturer in my opinion, but they are the cheapest, so yeah, get yourself a... Yeah, if I was going to get started today and I wanted some just reliable equipment, I would just get myself a really cheap Bachmann train set and then pair it with one or two Walters Trainline locomotives. The Walters engines are higher quality in my opinion. My dad got me a Chicago and Northern GP30 locomotive with DCC sound for Christmas. Coincidentally, my mom got me the November issue of Model Railroad. Whoops, sorry, the tripod's collapsing here. Coincidentally, my mom got me the November issue of Model Railroader magazine, which had the same locomotive on the cover. I've had that happen a couple times too. When I was, I think, about 7, I got the Walters catalog for 2008, and I was going through it, and I kept being like, hey, there's one of my engines. SMT, I'm thinking about starting a business where I tune up old model Athearn Blue Box locomotives and cars and sell them for $6 to $15. Should I go for the endeavor? If you're buying them, yeah, why not? If you have a good way to sell them, like on eBay or even at a train show, I'd say go for it. I mean, you could do jobs for people. The only challenge there is that you're now responsible for their stuff. So if something goes wrong, that can be stressful. And I just don't know how big the market is for it. Opinions on Athearn. My grandpa has a whole Norfolk Southern line, and most of his stuff is made by Athearn. Athearns are very good locomotives. I can't speak as much for their modern stuff because I don't own a lot of it, but I can say kind of like pre-2008 Athearn engines, the old blue boxes, those things are tanks. They're simple, they've got quality parts, they can last 50 years easily without really needing much maintenance. And we don't know. I mean, you know, some of those engines are now starting to approach the 60s, soon the 70s, and they're still running. So, yeah, very good locomotives. SMT, if you do a poll for DCC brands, could you put the home-built DIY DCC Plus? I have one. It's built with Arduino or Mega Arduino Motor Shield. I don't want to hate on the homemade DCC controllers. I think that's really cool, and I'm sure it opens up a lot of opportunities. But I think for a beginner, it would probably be challenging to set something like that up without knowing anything about the hobby to begin with. Kenneth Elliott, great work on the factory. I admire your determination. Any secrets lurk behind the black curtain? This is just storage, but yeah. Elliot just left a $50 super chat, so thank you so much. That's ridiculously generous. My goodness, I didn't see that coming. How's the Hershey's factory? I did a video about it a couple days ago, but here it is today. Last time everybody would have saw it, a lot of this was built, but since that video I've added a lot of figures, vehicles, AC units, little pipes to the factory. This was a fun project. I had no idea how I was going to get around building these air conditioning pipes. It's like, what can bend? And it's the right size. So what I did was I went to the dollar store. I bought some bendy straws, just spray painted them silver, and I think they actually look pretty good. Live. Hi. Hello. SMT, can you get some Metro trains? It would be epic. I don't see why not. If the deal comes upon me, I'll probably take it. There's going to be some more stuff added onto the layout soon, though. I've got probably about 5 purchases from eBay ready to go, including a New York City subway set, so I'm really excited to open that up. Who's that? That was just my sister. Good morning, SMT. I was wondering if you'd be able to run the Australian B-Class locomotive with the scratch-built freight wagons. Also, what would be appreciated as I'm sick. Nice work on the factory. Thanks. I can't run the... Well, I guess I could try to work the coupler through the... type these have, but yeah, the main problem is the scratch-built units don't have the same coupler, but I can certainly run the B-Class. NYC on top. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I think it would just look cool having a couple of New York City subway trains running around the layout. It wouldn't really fit the scene perfectly, but I've always wanted a subway train. A lot of people have been telling me to get one for a while, so what the heck. Do you shop on Amazon? I do for some materials like glues and paintbrushes, things like that, very basic stuff. But Amazon is not a very good source for model railroading equipment. A lot of people say, oh, Amazon's putting all the hobby shops out of business. It's like, if you've been on Amazon, all they have is Bachman stuff. There's not a lot there, and most of it's overpriced too. It's certainly not a deal. eBay is a site I buy a lot off though, because the selection's pretty good. Prices are not always the greatest, but if you want to find something, eBay is usually your place to go. I'll donate $800 if you run the big boy. Well, you don't have to donate $800. I'll run the big boy. We'll do that in a minute, though. We'll get the Australian locomotive on first, and then we'll get that going. Finally started building my N-scale layout. It's based on the Canadian Pacific Chalk River subdivision. I have used paper mache and cardboard for the scenery. Amazon trees, $14. That's very good. Yeah, Chalk River. I'm pretty sure I've been there before. What website can I buy metal wheels for my HO scale flatbed train cars? Probably eBay. Sets that I usually get are Rapido bits. They've got a passenger car set which has 50 pieces and a freight car set which has 50 pieces. And I find they work pretty well, so that's one option. Yes, Amazon really jacks up prices, especially on those hobby items. Yeah, for general supplies, the prices are not that bad, but you know, if you want to buy even a locomotive, anything like that, you're probably going to be overpaying on Amazon. But my bigger thing is that they just don't have a lot of stuff. Like they've got some Bachman, they've got a lot of Bachman stuff and then a little bit of Walters. And then that's about it. SMT, I'm starting up my own custom railroad called the Portland and Astoria. I might go on a trip with my grandparents to Portland to see the famous 449 daylight. Well, I hope you do. I'm sure that would be a trip to remember. Godzilla Boy, 2004. Thank you so much for the €2 super chat. Have you heard of the British rail class Deltic 55? I have heard of that locomotive. I was actually talking about how the Deltics were one of my favorite types of locomotive earlier in the live stream. If I'm not mistaken, the Deltic engines had a rotary combustion engine. I might be wrong. I don't know. I'm pretty sure they do. Your music choice was perfect for the Hershey factory. Thanks. Yeah, it took a while to figure out what I wanted to use for that, and especially with copyright restrictions and stuff, you know, I had to be careful. But I ended up finding the instrumental, which follows Imagination, which of course was by the, Willy Wonka chocolate movie. So that was a good fit. The other song is, I think it's called Rhythm of the Rain by the Cascades, and I thought that was a fitting song because it was actually from 1963 when they were opening the real factory. So you're telling a story from 1963 with music from 1963. I just thought it seemed like a good match. SMT, should I buy a Bachmann 4449? I'm not sure. I've owned a couple myself, and I don't know. They haven't been that good, to be honest. Deltics had an opposite piston system. Okay, yeah, I remember. So it was like you have, I think, 3 camshafts, or not camshafts, but, well, the drive shaft. I can't remember what it's called. The part the piston connects to. I thought that there was 3 of those all set up in a triangle. Somebody made a video about opposed to piston engine. I'm pretty sure they did put a rotary engine inside a locomotive, though. I wonder what that was. Let me Google it. Rotary engine locomotive. It's not coming up with anything, so maybe they never did exist. Godzilla Boy 2004. Can you run a passenger train and an E unit, an F unit at the other end, like the Intercity 125? Passenger train with an E unit and one at the other end. I mean, I guess I could try maybe putting my Amtrak E8 with an Amtrak F unit. Yeah, we'll see what we can do here. SMT, how do you recommend building a mountain on a layout I've tried and it hasn't ended well? The thing that I would probably do is find yourself a cardboard box and chop it up into little strands, like kind of like 1 inch wide by, say, a foot long. And what you do is you kind of weave the strands in between each other like a basket, and you just put hot glue down to hold it all together. Cover that up with paper. And then paint it. That's how I made all of these mountains, and you know, they're not the best out there, but they cost virtually nothing to put together. It's all scrap cardboard and junk paper. The only thing I have to invest into it is hot glue, which is pretty cheap. Alright, so if we're putting this request together, I guess we'll get this one out. SMT, what scale is the best for a small room? Probably N scale. I know there are some people out there who like Z scale, but there's just not as much stuff available. And it's not like N scale really takes up that much more space. I mean, they're both on the same layout there, so you can see the difference. So I'd probably go with N scale if you're on a limited amount of space. I'll see if I can find the other Amtrak unit here. I thought I had one over here. I guess for now we'll just run it with the Amtrak cars. He's gonna run the big boys soon. He's just trying to catch up with requests. Yeah, absolutely. We'll run that next. How's about that? There we go. What's your collection of N-scale engines? I'll show it to you. Let me just get these cars off the main line. When did you start your custom Hershey's factory? It was either late 2019 or early 2020. That's when I started at least building the table. I don't know. I think construction actually, like building physical parts of the building were, I think that began sometime in 2020. So here is the N-scale collection. It's probably made up of about 30 different locomotives. Hold on a moment here. Sorry about that. Does anyone think it's possible to get a Bachmann pancake drive back in working order? So long as it's not burnt out, yeah. Those are very easy engines to work on. But if the armature is bad, there's not really much you can do unless you want to venture rewinding it. And that's its whole other game. I've tried to rewind several motors before. I've been successful a couple times, but it's something that I think you have to be quite precise with, and I just don't have that level of precision. So every time I've tried to do it, the motor doesn't run the right speed, or it's pulling too many amps. What materials did you use for your Hershey factory? The entire body of the factory is just made of styrofoam, which is a pretty good material because you can cut it quite precisely. As for the exterior, it's pretty much all plastic. You could buy various plastic things like corrugated metal, brick, just flat sheets of glass, things like that. So that's what most of the outside is made out of. The roof is made out of, I believe it's 80 or 100 grit sandpaper, which I repainted. But yeah, it takes a long time. It's way easier. Like, if you want to just build a building, it's not the most tricky thing out there, but trying to actually make a perfectly scale model like this, trying to take every single measurement, that's a timely process. Looks like we had a bit of a derailment over here. I have a Santa Fe locomotive, just like the one you got in your unboxing video. It's a Bachmann. Those can be pretty simple. Remember how I told you how my Tyco locomotive runs like clockwork? It's the motor burnt out because I put a Lionel track. I put it on a Lionel track and fed it way too much power. It's all burnt out. Do you know if I can fix it? Yeah, if you put it on a Lionel track, it probably got, I don't know how many volts they put in that track, but there's a lot of amps, and it's AC, so that probably would have destroyed the motor pretty bad. However, Tyco engines are quite common, so what I'd probably do is just look for a power torque block. They're very cheap. You can find them everywhere. So, because, yeah, trying to fix up that armature, I'm sure that probably crispied up those coils pretty fast. Can you run the daylight or the American Freedom train? We can definitely run a daylight, but first I promised everybody that I was going to run the big boy locomotive, so we'll do that first. Why not have it pull these passenger cars? How big is your O gauge collection? Not that large. We got a few pieces of rolling stock and 4 different locomotives. One of them is a dummy. What C&J locomotive I have on the shelf? I don't know. I'll have to have a look. Hey, SMT, I'm currently building my layout while watching your live stream. Any advice? Well, if you're already building it, I'd assume you already have a plan, so you can skip the whole trying to make a list thing, so on and so forth. I'd say really take your time with track work. It's something that will pay off. It's tempting to want to throw everything together and just use it, but honestly, the more time I've done track work, the more I've learned that you really have to be precise about it. I'm still not perfect with this, but it's way better than it was like 2 years ago. Hey, Sub-T, do you have any plans to get any more N-scale or Z-gauge locomotives or rolling stock? Oh, I already bought a whole bunch more. Well, actually, I did get a little bit of Z-scale stuff and some N-scale stuff at the last train show, so I'm going to be doing a video on that hopefully soon. Time for the $800. Oh, boy. SMT, can you show us the Hershey factory and switch a few cars around? Sure. We'll try to find an engine which would be good for shifting cars at Hershey, but yeah, we could definitely go pick some stuff up there. So yeah, here's the factory. I'll show the back once we actually get to running an engine there. Maybe that one. Yeah, I also bought a entire lighting system for the Hershey factory too. Let's see if I can get this working here. Can you run the interurban freight motor you got? Sure, I'm just going to try to get an engine on so we can pick a couple cars up at Hershey's. I'll let that go around for one more lap. No smoke unit on any of the big boys. I don't think there is. I don't know if River Rossi even... Well, they might have had a smoke unit. I think the Hiawatha had a smoke unit, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that a lot of them didn't. It was more of an American Flyer thing. All right, let's get those cars. Uh-uh. Okay, so we got a few electrical issues in this section, but other than that, it doesn't work too bad. I say that as the cars just disconnect. I'm still waiting for an Addams Family train scene to happen. I was kind of thinking about that when I got the diesel on with the big boy. Well, it looks like it dropped off its cars somewhere in the tunnel there, but we're just going to leave that. Guess we'll just leave that running on the layout. Why not? The big boy's starting to catch up. Okay, that was not exactly ideal. There we go. How many trains have you collected? Probably about 500 locomotives. I think the chat has gotten stuck. Yeah, that's what I thought. There we go. Greetings from Birmingham, Alabama. The channel has been a great resource for me. Could you give us a refresher on how to enter the locomotives that you give away? Oh, it's pretty simple. On certain videos, sometimes when I buy stuff, I'll just be like, okay, I'm giving away a certain percentage, and all you have to do is leave a comment, and you're entered in the raffle. So, pretty simple stuff. Not a big fan of making people jump through hoops to try to win prizes. It's supposed to be a giveaway. It's supposed to be generous, so I want to make it nice and easy for everybody. Hello from Massachusetts. Welcome. Just came out of the train room. And you run the BNSF. Yeah, sure. Hi from across the pond. Welcome. My grandpa's uncle converted his entire attic into an HO layout into a layout with N-scale, HO, and O. I really wish I was there to see it, but I built a layout with his stuff. Crazy to see how long it lasts. That's a pretty cool story. Glad to hear it got repurposed. It was sort of a similar thing because my dad used to be into model trains, and so I got all the buildings and track locomotives off his layout. And my grandmother was also into model trains, so there are a few of her belongings in and amongst this collection, including the Hiawatha, actually. But yeah, it is wild how well they used to build this stuff. A bit of maintenance, pretty much lasts forever. Have you ever been to Arizona? I can't say I have. The furthest out that way I've probably been was Los Angeles, which is quite a ways away. Boston, Massachusetts is a great place to live. I like Boston. I've probably only been there around 5 times in my life, but yeah, it's a nice city. My uncles actually used to live there, and they owned a store, so it was always nice going to get to see them. And I don't know. There's real life around there. Florida is a fun place. People like to badmouth Florida and say, "Oh, it's crazy," but you know what? If you can embrace the wild side of it, it's pretty cool. Where did you get the railroad crossing? It was a gift from my grandparents. What's the best tip for buying rolling stock? I have too much of it. One type of car, okay. Yeah, if you're buying used rolling stock, just check to make sure that it's got both couplers. Make sure both those couplers are working. Make sure it's got all the wheels. Other than that, there's not too many rules to follow. You can usually buy a lot of it at train shows pretty cheap. I went to Zeeknik Trains the other day, and they had a General Electric switcher like the ones you have. Huh. I decided to create a ramp with my model locomotive. That was the end of it. Have you driven any trains in real life? I haven't driven any trains. I did drive a streetcar once. That was pretty cool. What else? I've been in the cab of several locomotives. How did your grandparents get the railroad crossing signs? I don't know. I guess they just must have gone up to a railroad and just unbolted them, taken them home. No, I'm just kidding. They found these things on Kijiji, which is kind of like Facebook Marketplace, and they told me I was just going to get the 2 lights, which I was already really psyched about. But then a couple weeks later when they showed up, they actually had the entire crossing, which they built all of that from scratch. And my grandfather, he found some pieces of pipe and actually wired up a couple 12-volt bulbs, put a 12-volt power supply on it. Very wonderful gift. Another derailment. Do you like the newer train you fixed? Yeah, it's pretty good. Somebody was actually asking that I run that one, so maybe we'll get that out there. What's your favorite railroad? What's your favorite paint scheme? My favorite paint scheme is the H2 paint scheme from BNSF. My favorite railroad is probably CN. Why do all the people call railway in America even though it's railroad? Well, I don't know. I think it's kind of a tomato-tomato thing. I don't really understand why an American railroad is different from a British railway. It's the same gauge and everything. Hey Harrison, I got got a $300 DCCNS locomotive. Sounds like quite the thing. Can you show off fewer model railroads? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I could start something up where people could send in videos of their layouts. It might be a kind of a cool idea. Or things people have built. That might be another good one. There were some forums I used to be part of which had something kind of like that. I think it was called like "What's on the Workbench this week." After the Canadian Pacific KC merge, both companies will have heritage units. Well, I'm pretty sure they're keeping their paint scheme the same. When I was 8, I went on a train ride at a railway museum. They asked somebody to come with the engineer to drive the train, but I had to go. Biggest regret ever. Oh no. Keeping the paint scheme the same is a bad idea in my opinion. What do you do when you get new engines now? I had assumed that they would probably divide them up. So if it was a Canadian locomotive, they'd probably paint it with the Canadian Pacific paint scheme. And if it was an American engine, probably with the Kansas City Southern paint scheme. I am going to be curious to see if they at least change the writing, though. As in, like, when BNSF, when Burlington Northern and Santa Fe merged, they had a lot of Santa Fe engines that had BNSF written on them, even though they still had the Santa Fe paint scheme. So I'm curious to see if they'll do something similar to that, or if they truly will just leave them as is. All right, let's see how this works. Have you heard of the Saratoga North Creek? I haven't heard of that one. I saw the video with that. Yeah, it seems to be running half decent. Can you run a completely random engine, which is the first one you see when you take a look at your shelf? So random dry, maybe I'll have a go at that. Just gonna turn the speed down because I don't entirely trust this thing to stay on the track. All right. Okay, I've kind of had a look at this shelf, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to close my eyes and I'm just going to pick one off this shelf. Let's see here. And it is whatever that is. I know you're more of a train guy, but do you have a dream car? Probably a 1969 or 71 Dodge Charger. My grandfather used to have a Charger, so it's kind of a sentimental thing. He had a 71, as well as a Barracuda, both very cool cars. I currently have a car that I quite like, though. I got a 79 Oldsmobile Regency. Huge vehicle, not very powerful, but it cruises. It's like driving a living room around. Oh yeah, I forgot this thing had issues. That sounds so bad. This might be a good restoration video. I don't know what happened to it. Yeah, I think this engine must have a bad gear. You can kind of hear a bit of a thumping sound. Did you hear about the submersible that had an implosion? Yeah, that's a really sad situation. I kind of can't believe that happened. A lot of foreshadowing stuff with that situation. The fact it was called the Titan, which was actually the ship which there was a mythical story written about a ship called the Titan, which was the world's biggest ship, which sank, which of course very closely mimics the story of the Titanic, which is what it was going to see. Another thing which is kind of weird too is that in the movie from the 80s, Race Titanic, that exact thing happens. There's a scene where one of their submarines implodes. So it's just kind of weird how much foreshadowing there almost was with that. But yeah, I feel very sorry for those people. You give some of us with the lesser used engine some love, man. Yeah, that's what it's about. It was a tourist railroad that ran along the Hudson River and the Adirondack, but it went out of business in 2018. The good thing about driving a 79 Olds is that people get out of your way when they see you coming. Yeah, they're definitely not going to question 2 tons of steel headed their way. Those cars are just boats. Although most cars these days are pretty big because a lot of people are driving SUVs and trucks. So as far as sedans go, it's massive. But as far as vehicles go, I guess it would actually be a medium-sized car. There was something I was supposed to run. I'm pretty sure it was the daylight. Trail time. Oh my goodness. There's somebody I haven't seen in a while. How have you been? Okay, so I can't run the daylight because unfortunately the wire broke off that in a previous live stream. Have you ever been to Wisconsin? Not so far, but it's on my bucket list of places I want to visit. Is Bachman a good company to buy from? Because I got a E60 locomotive. If you can find them for a good price, they're okay, but they're certainly not... They're probably bottom of my list in terms of reliability. In terms of modern engines, I mean, obviously a modern engine is more reliable than an old Tyco or an old Lifelike. But in comparison to all the other brands, I wouldn't count on it as much as I would say a Kato engine. Can you run the steam engine that's in front of the German cars? Well, I was actually going to run that earlier, so why don't we bring it out? You got any British locomotives? Yeah, I've got a few. Probably run the Intercity a little bit later. These are stuck. What would you rate Mark's HO trains? Higher quality than Lifelike and Tycho and Bachmann of the same era. Probably not the most reliable out there, but they weren't junk. There was a little bit of effort put into those. Certainly not a very realistic brand, though. A lot of their engines I find look a little bit weird. I've been waiting for the Hershey video for years. Well, I'm glad to say it's finally done. I remember back in the spring when I was telling people I wanted to get it done by June 16th. They were like, well, believe that when I see it. With good reason, because I mean, I've been saying I was going to get that factory done since like 2021, but this time it was for real. Have you ever had a train catch fire? Not to the point where there were actual flames coming out of it, but I've had a couple of motors burn up pretty bad and tons of smoke came out of them. Honestly stoked that I caught a live stream for the first time. Wanted to say hello. Welcome, Kyle. Can the TGVs go for a spin? Yeah, probably. Have a look for one of those. Stay away from Bachmann steam locomotives, unless you want to just keep it on the shelf. The older ones have got unquartered issues, just keep derailing. Yeah, that's a good point. Their diesel engines from the 80s are not super reliable, but a lot of those repairs are easy. With the steam engines, it's a little bit more complicated. So yeah, probably not something anybody would want to buy. Can you run your biggest locomotive? Sure. Real time. Yeah, Bachmann's pretty mediocre. My GS4 has been collecting dust. I'd really like my GS4 if it just didn't have so many derailing issues. Like, I just don't find the thing can stay on the track, and there have been some people that are like, well, you know, they're trying to be realistic with the sizes of the flanges and so on, but honestly, I'd prefer them kind of avoid a little bit of realism in order to make them run right. Like the old Riverossis, the flanges on those are massive, but they do a very good job at staying on the track, so there definitely is a benefit there. Anyways, we'll bring this thing back. So there you saw it. This engine does actually run. I always love bringing this thing to the train club. It's always a double take moment because people think that they're seeing an ABA set, and then they look a little bit closer and they realize it's all one great big locomotive. It's pretty funny to see. The Bachmann E60, I thought it would be smart to fly it off the table about half as fast. Oh no. You get yourself a bottle of crazy glue. If you're patient enough, you might be able to just glue it back together. I think the comments have gotten stuck again. Scale locomotives had a driver fall off and jam up the motor. Now it doesn't run with crap. Yeah, that's a pretty common problem with those older Bachmanns. Did it crash or did he just take a break? No, the stream crashed for some reason. It wasn't my phone. That I don't know what's been going on. The Wi-Fi here has just been randomly going out lately, so I'm guessing that that's what happened. This has been every night at about 8 o'clock the internet just goes out. No idea why. Have you ever seen an abandoned train? I've seen a few before. Years ago, at the Seashore Trolley Museum in Maine, they have a whole bunch of trolleys which are off limits to the public. It's like their entire kind of warehouse, and some of these are in really bad shape, but they do have a few gems. But we found out that if you become a member of the museum, you can actually ask for a private tour. So we became members and we're actually able to go see that. And a lot of that stuff basically is in abandoned condition. I have a strange request, SMT. I have a Bachmann Johnny Cash train set, and I was wondering if you'd be willing to trade anything for it. I'm certainly open to that if you want to send me an email. This is a project. I'm building that for a family friend. I'll probably be doing a video later on about that. Sorry about that, everybody. I don't know why it keeps seizing out like that. It's through a traction tire. TGV. Yeah, this does not seem to be running all that well. I don't remember this thing having issues. Oh, there we go. I think it's starting to pull through. This is really weird. Drag race the Dreyfus with the lifelike tea kettle. All right. It might be the final train of the night. I don't know why these connection issues keep popping up, but if they're going to continue, I'm probably not going to bother with the live stream because I don't think it's very fun for everybody if every couple minutes it's all leaving. All right, so what does everybody think? What would win the race? The tea kettle, worst locomotive that lifelike probably ever made, or River Rossi or Richard Dreyfuss? I think my money is probably on the tea kettle, but we'll see. Lifelike tea kettle. Yeah, the River Rossi probably has a stronger motor, but it's just got a lot more to push, whereas the tea kettle is super lightweight. It might just derail, though. I don't know. It's not got much weight on it, so let's see how that goes. Okay, I think those are fairly well queued up. Let's go tea kettle. Got a lot of people voting for the tea kettle. Let's see if we can get a decent angle of the takeoff here. I think the tea kettle is probably going to do a wheelie. All right. Actually, let's make sure they're... Okay, yeah, they're both going the right direction. All right, 3, 2, 1. Oh, it's neck on neck. Now let's redo that. The tea kettle failed to start. Well, that's not good. All right. Let's see here. It wheelied. Yeah, it did. While it was going, that was the best thing I've seen. All right, 3, 2, 1. Well, one took off, derailed. The other one didn't even start. Is it seized? Yeah, locked up. That's weird. Doesn't want to go into forwards. Runs. This is really weird. We'll run fine backwards, but when I try to run it forwards, it just locks up. Oh, yeah, there we go. Got it unlocked. I don't know why I did that. All right, let's give this another chance. Tea kettle got its revenge, sort of. So, yeah, let's try launching them off one more time. What does everybody think should be the next contestant to go against the Dreyfus? What's wrong with the tea kettle? Nothing's wrong with it. I just removed the rear weight, so it makes it a little unbalanced. So when it accelerates quickly, it pops a wheelie. Good thing the tea kettle was on the inside track. Yeah, it would have rolled right off the layout. Race it against the big boy. Interesting toy. Can't speak English anymore. Interesting choice. 2 River Rossies. Thinking that the Dreyfus probably has the upper hand here, but I basically have an identical motor, so the gear ratio could be the same. All right. Oh. The Dreyfus is a little bit faster. Dreyfus versus the Daylight. The problem is I don't really have a working Daylight at the moment. The SMT Berkshire. Try using the older version of the big boy. That was the older big boy. This is the new one. That big boy needs servicing. I don't think it was like running that bad. I just think that it's naturally a slower locomotive. Random 040, the Hiawatha can take it. I feel like the Hiawatha is just going to roll off the layout. I've had some pretty bad derailments with that thing. Not the River Rossi, but the Fox Valley. Dreyfus versus any Alco. Could try to race it against this really clapped out River Rossi here. Oh, that's a trick. I didn't know those were wired different. So try running a GG1 against it. That might go faster. The Dreyfus is undefeated. It seems so. Might have met its match with this one. Yeah, okay, so the GG one is faster. It's funny, when they both started accelerating, the Dreyfus actually had a little bit of an upper hand for a couple seconds. No, my boy. Let's recreate the cursed Acela incident. That's a good idea. Let's try to race the Acela against this thing. So I'd personally say out of the two, I think the Acela probably has the upper hand. Or actually the Dreyfus, I should say. Just because this has two pretty large flywheels in it, plus a die-cast frame. So that's a lot of weight that has to get moving, whereas this is pretty light. It's all plastic. So I think this should be interesting. I think at least in the launch, we're probably going to see the Dreyfus take the lead. Oh, yeah. So off the starting line, the Dreyfus is faster, but the Acela has a higher top speed once it gets those flywheels all spooled up. Oh, man. Race the Hudson with a four-wheel switcher. I think the Dreyfus is still going to be the faster. Whoops. That was a false start. Train race time. Yeah, apparently so. We got one which I think is going to be pretty good. I got right here is a couple of marked switchers. These have an identical drive, so they should theoretically go the same speed, but due to their condition, probably not. So just be interesting to kind of just test two engines, similar age, exact same drive, see which one goes faster. Well, looks like the Rock Island line is a little faster. Peter Wacko, did you see the comment I just sent you? Let's have a look. Have you ever tried to do a big power move? I just did a 24 locomotive power move. My back is killing me. I don't think I've done one with that many engines. Probably 5. DC or DCC? I talked to a guy at a train show and he told me that lots of guys are going back to DC at his railroad club. It's simpler, less of a hassle, also cheaper. What do you think? Personally, I prefer DC. I just find, you know, all those points are quite valid. It's a lot cheaper. It's a lot easier to work on. Having said that, in a club situation, I probably would go with DCC just because you've got more control. I mean, earlier I was doing some shifting at the Hershey factory. I was able to use my phone, but generally, I'm a DC guy. Can you do your best radio commentary voice? Well, folks, in today's video... Do you have a rear Publix train? I don't think I do. Rate Timbit flavor. Well, number one for Timbit flavors, I gotta go with the birthday cake flavor. It's a very good Timbit. Second would probably be the chocolate. Third would probably be old fashioned. Fourth would be jelly filled. What would be last? I don't know. I can't remember every kind of Timbit that's out there. Maybe we have 2 Athearn engines have a duel. I feel like that would be a good way to finish off the live stream. Hey, look, it's the Kraus Mafia. Seems to be stuck. There we are. Just looking for another blue box F unit to run against this. That should probably work quite well. What's the biggest train you've ever fixed? Probably one of the big boy units. We need t-shirts. I actually do have a merch store called smtmainline.com. We'll see, though. I don't know if I want to stick with Teespring because I find I've been having a lot of issues with them. Came back to see if that would fix it. I think the problem's on my end with the connection. You need more shelf space, less motive power. I've got a few more shelf inserts, which I'm going to be adding on to help fix that. All right, 2 identical locomotives from my childhood. Well, let's see which is faster. That's quite interesting. Do you have any gas turbine models? I don't think I do. This must be what all the engines have been hitting. Gotta go see you in the next live stream. All right. Was that the haunted house kit between those 2 tunnels? Yeah, I bought one of those years ago. I saw a comment, I can't find it, it disappeared, about somebody getting paid $90 and asking what they should buy with it. I don't know what happened to that. Do you like ships? Do you have any model ships on the layout? I do like ships, not as much as trains, but they're pretty cool as well. I don't have any model ships though. Great job in the Hershey factory, thanks. Did you hear about the submarine that went missing to go see the Titanic? Yeah, I was talking about that earlier. Very unfortunate event. Do you have a favorite locomotive? If so, please run it. We actually already did earlier in the live stream. Is the HCW locomotive, the Swedish E2. see if we can get one more Athearn rolling around with these. Yeah, there we go. Missing submarine, when did that happen? It happened just a couple days ago. I think it was on Sunday it launched and didn't report back. So they've been out on a hunt trying to find this thing, thinking maybe it had got stuck. But today they found the Rebel at the bottom of the ocean. It turns out something had gone wrong with the structure of the submarine and the thing imploded. I have a question, SMT. Do you own Bombardier bi-level cars? Yeah, I've got a 4-car Go Transit set, which I sometimes run with this engine. If you ever come to the United States, you should see the train stores in Melbourne. Where's that? Can you please run the D&H locomotive if you have one? I don't think I do. I like the Hershey factory. Looks cool, glad to see it. Thanks. I'm on a hill, therefore I have the wackiest roller coaster of a model railroad. If I ever stop my rolling stock anywhere they roll, this has led to disasters. 50-second time. Was anybody on the submarine? Yeah, unfortunately there was 5 people. It's really tragic. Run the Wakefield train. We already ran the Wakefield train. I think honestly I'm going to finish off the live stream because it's been having some technical issues. But yeah, I don't know. I'll run one more locomotive. Do you have N scale? I do. It's actually right up there. Train's looking great. Yeah, they're running pretty good. These were 2 of the locomotives, which I actually got brand new when I was a kid. Can you run the local train? Okay, we'll do one more train of the Hershey plant. Your training room looks like a mess just like mine. Well, lately it's been a little bit tidier. When I do these live streams, I usually just throw engines on this table just so that I don't have to do a million trips back and forth with my wobbly camera. But yeah, I have been trying to keep things a little bit better down here. What phone model do you use for video? I use an iPhone 11. So we got a little bit of a derailment here. Whoa. That was close. Got a bit of a bug right there. I don't know why, but there's been a lot of derailments on that corner. It wasn't happening before I added the plaster, and I've cleared the flange ways, but something funny's still happening there. Anyways, I think that someone's chocolate's gonna be cracked. Yeah, probably so. Yeah, I think I'll finish off the live stream. Thank you all so much for joining in this evening. I always enjoy running the trains with all of you, and hope you enjoyed watching. Anyways, I think with that, I'll wish everybody a good night. Bye, everyone.